A young prince had gone riding very early in the morning before the sunrise. And by the way, I'm reading a story called Blancaflor. It's one of our fifth graders' favorite stories that's ever been written in existence. And it was by Alma Flor Ada. Ada. A young prince had gone riding very early in the morning. Now, tired and sad, he sat under the branches of a very large oak tree. He was thinking about his father, the king, who lay in the castle, sick with an illness that nobody knew how to cure. Physicians had been called in from all the neighboring kingdoms, wizards had been consulted, and the queen had prepared with her own hands all the herbal medicines suggested. But nothing seemed to help the king, who grew weaker and weaker with each passing day. The young prince had been sitting under the tree for a while, lost in thought, when he was surprised by a deep voice that was coming from the branches of the oak tree. Now, hey, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Trees don't talk, do they? But this tree does. What would you be willing to give for your father's health? The prince looked around. He couldn't see anybody talking. Well, I'd give anything for my father's health, he responded, trying to disguise the fear in his voice. Then, in 3 years' time, you shall bring yourself to me, to the 3 silver towers in the land of no return. Do I have your promise? And I will make your father well. The deep voice bellowed from the oak tree in every leaf. Yes, the young man said. I, Prince Alfonso, do solemnly promise. I, Prince Alfonso, do solemnly promise that I will do as you ask, if my father is indeed cured. Next page. "3 years from today," said the voice so loudly that all the leaves fell down upon the startled prince. Shaking them off his shoulders, he jumped on his horse and back to the palace, to his father's room. "Son," his mother greeted him with a smile. It was the first smile he'd seen on her lovely face for many days, her loving face. "Look at your father. He seems so much better. And indeed, the sleeping giant, or sleeping giants, the sleeping giant, the sleeping king seemed to have regained all his color, and his sleep was sound and placid. The king was completely healthy again in no time. But now the queen worried about her son. He seemed delighted, as was everyone, to see the king recover, and yet, once in a while, the queen would detected a profound sadness in her son's eyes. The king was determined that Prince Alfonso should marry. That's a weird transition. His prolonged illness left him with a renewed urgency for life. I want to see you start a family. I want to get to know my grandchildren. Even though the prince insisted that he wasn't ready for marriage, the king ordered portraits of every marriageable princess brought in from all the neighboring kingdoms. That's kind of weird. When they all failed to interest the prince, the king organized banquets, dances, and outings to have the prince meet every noble girl he could possibly invite. That also seems kind of weird. But while the king managed to create a great deal of work for the seamstress and the coiffures of the kingdom, and many young people, with the many young people that they had a wonderful time at the events, and he still couldn't get the prince to change his mind. He left behind a stack of poems that talked about his love for his mother, his gratitude towards his father. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed an entire paragraph on that. Let me go down. Actually, I don't have to. I can probably read it from here. As time passed, the prince's behavior became stranger and stranger. He spent most of his time outside the castle. He'd ride his horse. During the evening, he would write poems, and compose sweet, sad music on his lute. Finally, one morning, exactly 1 month before 3 years had gone by, from the day on which his father healed, a mysterious voice. He could hear a mysterious voice. And that made him set out on his journey. How come the prince is so sad? That doesn't seem quite right that the prince should be sad. His father's better. But what type of deal did he make with the tree? By the way, everybody, don't make a deal with a tree. It never works out. And also, does anybody know what a lute is? Well, it's an instrument that's slightly smaller than a flute. And it plays music. Like, let me see if I have something here. I thought I had something here. Oh, yeah. I think I have my lute right here.
Is it a guitar?
No, it's like this. And you play it. And it goes. Yeah, this is my lute.
No, it's like a little guitar.
It also has a magic button and makes other sounds. So that's my lute. Did you like it?
No.
You didn't like it? That's sad. The king couldn't understand the disappearance of his son. Whoops. He left behind a stack of poems and talked about his love for his mom and his gratitude towards his dad and the joy in everyone and everything. And he also left a letter for his parents asking forgiveness for causing them sorrow. But he assured them he was leaving only because he needed to honor a promise. Well, that doesn't leave a lot of answers. His parents are probably wondering, what's this promise? The king couldn't understand the disappearance of his son. He was ready to send knights and guards to comb the world until they found him, but the queen requested, we need to honor our son's wishes, just as his son was honoring his promise. Inside her mom's heart, she could sense there was a connection between father getting better and the son leaving. That's kind of sad. At the end, I bet, I should play my lute for you at the end. Don't you think, everybody?
No.
By the way,
don't.
I am recording this.
It's beautiful. Please.
Thank you. Just so you know, I am recording this. Young Prince.
You should record a video of you playing your thing.
The lute?
Yeah, a lute is a little guitar thing. Just look it up. Lute. Look it up.
You mean it's not what I thought it was?
Nope.
Okay, it's time to move ahead.
It's a little tiny guitar thing.
Thank you. I'm going to move forward. Young Prince Alfonso rode for many days, eating sparingly of the food that he took with him. Several times he asked shepherds he met along the way for directions to the land of no return. They always pointed him in the same direction, towards the setting sun. And when they wondered, why would you even want to go there? The prince would respond, I have to honor my word. On the 7th day of his journey, the prince saw a white dove who seemed to signal him to follow her. And so he followed the white dove. But after many hours of following the dove, he found himself inside a deep ravine. He stopped. He was puzzled. He knew well that there's no way he could cross this gorge on horseback or foot. Then a majestic eagle appeared in front of him. It looked piercingly in his eyes. Might you carry me to the other side? He asked the eagle. Because when you see an eagle, you just start talking to it. Only if you give me your chain, the eagle responded. Young Alfonso took off the heavy gold chain that bore the eagle emblem of his kingdom and hung it around the eagle's nest. Around the eagle's neck. Not his nest, his neck. It's only fitting, the prince said. I have carried your image with me always. Now it should be yours. Then the eagle grasped him firmly by his leather belt and flew him across the ravine. The eagle released the young prince on the other side, where the land was deserted and barren. Basalt and obsidian rocks burned hot under the fierce sun. Far in the distance, high above the steep walls, 3 towers of silver glittered. Alfonso had just taken a few steps towards the tower when he stopped because of a thundering voice. Who dares step on my land? I am here to honor my promise, the young prince answered. This is as it should be, the voice replied, and to reward you, I will give you the opportunity to win your life back. If you fulfill the 3 tasks I have of you, you will stay here and marry one of my 3 daughters. But if you do not complete the tasks, you will be food for my hounds. Alfonso took a deep breath. Squaring his shoulders and steadying his voice, he asked, What would you like me to do? Take this sack of wheat, walk up to the valley, plant it, harvest it, mill it with the flour, bake some bread, and bring it to me by 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. To Alfonso's great surprise, a small sack of wheat appeared before his eyes. How in the world are you going to make wheat grow in one day? And then you have to mill it and harvest it, all that stuff. And then bake bread? Come on. The young man lifted the sack and he began to walk up the path among the rocks. What else could he do? His head hung low on his shoulders, drooped because he knows there's no way I can fulfill this task. I'm going to need magic. He hadn't walked far when there was a young girl who appeared in front of him. I have no idea how Alfonso's going to do this. Maybe you have some ideas. I don't know. We can't have everything be magic, can we? Hey, that picture of that person in the purple dress looks familiar. So she appeared before him. What's wrong? I'm sorry. What's wrong? She asked of him. Why are you so sad? I've been asked to do an impossible task, and my life depends on it. My father must be up to one of his tricks, she responded. But don't worry, I'll help you. Take the stick, poke the earth with it. Keep walking in a straight line and poke as you walk. I will drop the seeds, and all will be well. That seems too easy. That afternoon, and after all the wheat had been planted, they watched the sun set together. The young girl said, My name is Blancaflor, and if you trust me, we will save your life. Now I have to go, otherwise they'll miss me at dinner. After she left, Alonso went to sleep. He rested his back against a very large boulder. So if you're interested in a good night's rest, find a very large rock in your backyard and sleep next to it. In the morning, the valley was covered with ripe wheat. Its golden spikes shined in the early morning sun. It's time. Alfonso was still rubbing his eyes when Blancaflor appeared. It's time to harvest the grain and mill it and bake bread with that flour. And as she spoke, the wheat flew out of its stalks and formed a golden mountain. A mill and an outdoor oven appeared next to the mountain of wheat. That doesn't seem right. Never trust somebody who makes wheat appear in a mill and all that. Just, I don't know. I don't know if we can trust her. Hey, keep fetching wood for the oven, Blancaflor told Alfonso. And while he did, the mill ground the wheat, and loaf upon loaf of bread dough appeared ready to be baked. When the smell of the recently baked bread filled the valley, Blancaflor disappeared. It's better that my father doesn't see me here when he comes for the bread, she told Alfonso before leaving. Soon a thundering voice was heard. Either you are a wizard or you have met Blancaflor. Alfonso kept silent, didn't say a word. Well, you still have 2 more tasks. You better get started because plant these grapevines and have the wine ready for me by 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. And while the loaves of bread moved through the air as if carried by giant hands, Alfonso found 100 grapevine saplings at his feet. It wasn't long before Blancaflor appeared again, and just as the pair had grown the wheat the previous day, now they planted the saplings. That evening, they watched the sun set. Alfonso told Blancaflor about his mom. Told her also about his dad and the promise that he made. And once again, she said, "Trust me, I'll help." The next morning, the valley was covered fully with grown grapes, loaded with ripe bunches, and it only took a few words from Blancaflor for the grapes to be harvested and crushed for the wine, which could be stored in huge oak casks. Just before 11, after Blancaflor already left, the thundering voice was heard again. "Either you are a mighty wizard, or you have been talking to Blancaflor." Alfonso didn't say a word. He shivered when he heard the voice start laughing. Alfonso kept quiet again. "Well, let's see how you do with this last task. You need to bring the ring my great-great-grandmother lost in the ocean. And if you don't have it here by 11 o'clock, you will be food for my hounds." That sounds awful, don't you think, everybody? Food for the hounds? Uh-oh. This is the picture. Uh-oh. When Blanca...
It's called the land of the never return, so he's not going to
He's not coming
return.
back. No. But yet there's still hope he might do something. He might at least live. When Blancaflor returned, there were tears in Alfonso's eyes. "I'm not afraid to die, but I hate to break my mom's heart. This task is going to be impossible," he told her. "Oh, no, it won't be. But you will need to trust me even more," she replied. Blancaflor led Alfonso to a set of high cliffs next to the ocean. There the prince spotted the eagle who had carried him across the gorge. "The eagle will take us to the middle of the ocean. Then you must let go of me. I have to fall in." Now do you see what's going on with the picture? He's going to hold on to the eagle and hold on to Blancaflor, and he has to drop her into the ocean. Do you think he wants to drop her in after 2 nights of her helping him with the wine and the bread, and then also sitting with her for the sunsets? He says,
How can an eagle carry 2?
"That's a strong eagle." "But I won't be able to do that," he argued. "Yes, you will. And yes, you must. That's right, it'll be magic." When they were high above the ocean, Blancaflor asked the princess to let her go. But at the last minute, he held on to her hand. As his fingers slipped from hers, he heard a crack. Her little finger hung broken. Oy, 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 oy. I want to read that part again. When they were high above the ocean, Blancaflor asked the prince to let her go. But at the last minute, he desperately held on to her hand. As her fingers slipped from his, he heard a crack. Her little finger hung broken. That's awful. Alfonso felt his heart stop as he saw Blancaflor disappear under the water. His eyes filled with tears as the eagle flapped her wings. Before he knew it, they were standing in the meadow next to the boulder against which he'd slept the last 2 nights. There on top of the boulder was an extraordinary ring in the shape of a dragon that had 2 emeralds for eyes. And in that ring was still a finger. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. He had not admired the ring for very long. Hey, I got a lol out of that. He had not admired the ring for very long when he heard a thundering voice. "So you found the ring. Either you are the king of all wizards, or you have been helped by Blancaflor." Alfonso remained silent. The voice continued. Follow the path to the castle. Tonight you will meet my 3 daughters and choose one for your wife. When Alfonso reached the 3 silver towers, the gates opened and he entered. And in the main banquet hall, there were 3 white doves. 3 white doves? Choose one right now, the voice echoed against the thick walls. Alfonso studied the 3 doves. Well, they all looked identical. But he noticed one looked like it had a broken wing. He remembered Blancaflor's little finger. He remembered the little finger. Oh, you'll like this next line. He remembered Blancaflor's little finger hanging twisted from her hand. Hanging twisted from her hand. You don't know how hard this is to read. I choose this one. I choose this one, he said, and walked towards the dove with the broken wing. Suddenly, Blancaflor appeared right in front of him, surrounded by her 2 other sisters, who looked just like her. No one would have been able to tell them apart. But when Alfonso observed Blancaflor's hand, he could see her little finger had been bandaged together. Take your wife, ordered the voice, and let's all go to sleep. We will celebrate the wedding tomorrow. How in the world are you going to fall asleep right after that event? You're thinking about some damaged hand and finger, and all of a sudden, oh, sleep time. Sorry, I don't know how that works. All right, Blancaflor guided Alfonso to her room, and once inside, she closed the door because she wanted to whisper something to him. They're going to kill us tonight. We must escape. I didn't see that one coming. They're going to kill us tonight. We must escape. I know, you don't see that one coming, do you? She arranged the covers on the bed to look as if they were sleeping. She blew on the glass of water next to the bed and led Alfonso outside. This is disturbing, isn't it? That's why I like this story. I will stay here on guard in case my father comes in pursuit. You go to the stables. Get us a horse. Bring it here. There's going to be 2 horses there. One is young and strong, much like Carlos, but his name is Viento. It means wind. The other one is old and thin, much like Mr. Chi, old and big, but his name is Pensamiento, which means thought. You have to take Pensamiento. Don't take Viento. Take Pensamiento. But when Alfonso got to the stable and he saw those 2 horses, that skinny old horse isn't going to carry the both of us. So he took the young one, Viento. Big mistake. They're dead. I mean, something's going to happen. While Alfonso was getting the horse, Blancaflor's father was at the daughter's door. He called softly to see if she was asleep. Yeah, why would you still marry somebody after they almost tore your finger off? Anyway, good comment, whoever that was. Blancaflor. That was the dad's voice. And the breath she left on the water answered, Yes, father? Do you need me? After a few minutes, he called again, Blancaflor. And the breath on the water repeated it again. Yes, father? When he called a third time, the breath only let out a He stormed into the room, and he quickly realized that they both were gone. So he set out after them. Okay, this is weird. The dad wants to kill the daughter and her fiance. I don't know if I like that. You kids might like it, but I think it's kind of... Oh, I forgot to advance the page, by the way. Blancaflor was dismayed when Alfonso came riding Viento, the young horse. Her father emerged from the castle, and he jumped on the old horse and chased after them. They galloped across the valley for only a few minutes when they could hear Pensamiento. And he was catching up to them. If only we'd taken Pensamiento instead of Viento, said Blancaflor. By the way, tonight, I think you should say these words to somebody at like the dinner table just to like say something random. Oh, if only we'd taken if only we'd taken Pensamiento instead of Viento. Pensamiento.
My mom would not react to that at all.
She'd probably send you to your room. Oh, if only we'd taken Pensamiento instead of Viento. Sean, go to your room. Okay, but anyway.
Okay. But I'm already in my room.
There you
Where
go.
am I gonna go?
My father wouldn't have been able to keep up with us. Then she took a comb that held her hair together, and she threw the comb on the road behind them. What's that going to do? Ooh, this will be interesting. The comb turned into a chain of steep mountains that blocked the way and gave them a little distance. But very soon they could hear Pensamiento again. Blancaflor took the gold pin that held her shawl and threw it on the ground. The gold pin turned into a desert of very hot sand and allowed them to gain some distance. But they heard Pensamiento again. If only we had taken Pensamiento instead of Viento, Blancaflor said. And then she took her blue silk shawl and threw that on the ground. The blue silk shawl turned into a large sea of high waves covered with foam. Then Alfonso urged Viento, take on all my good thoughts, the thoughts of my mother's love, the thoughts of my father's kindness, my new love for Blancaflor. Take these thoughts, Viento. Let them lighten your step and make you faster. Hey. Spurred by Alfonso's thoughts, Viento became as fast as Pensamiento. Before they knew it, the prince and Blancaflor were at the doors of Alfonso's old castle, greeted by his kind father and loving mother. And they hugged them. They haven't even met Blancaflor. They were still holding one another when a terrible gust of wind ripped the leaves off the trees. They could see that there was a black tornado approaching. Alfonso gathered all the courage he could, and he shouted into the wind, "My word has been honored. What about yours?" And he yelled into the tornado. The wind blew even wilder for a moment. But then it subsided, and they heard the dying wind with a deep voice. It sounded like it came from a faraway place. "You have proven to be wise, my daughter. Now go, be happy. Love, Dad." It didn't say love, Dad. I'm just kidding. And this is the story of Blancaflor. It began with threads of silver and ended with threads of gold, all woven for you in a story like I just did. Isn't that amazing, everybody? Didn't you love that story? That is one of the great stories that they have for wonders.
It's cuckoo.
What? It's not cuckoo. It's an amazing story of Blancaflor. All right.
Amazing about a dad wanting to kill her own daughter.
That is creepy. I'll give you that. That part, no doubt, creepy.
Mr. G.
What?
Can you find more roots like that?
What?
Can you find more wonders thingies like that?
Oh, you like that story?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to. And I'm going to stop my recording right now.
Wasn't that? Oh my God.
So what that means is you will get